Hi everyone, welcome to the release readiness for 2020.11. We're going to be covering SMAX and HCMX today. This is Tanya Sherba from the product management team, and we have members of the PM and R&D teams with us today. For those of you who are watching the session live, just wanted to take note that today is November 11th is Remembrance Day, and many countries are using this day of remembrance to recognize men and women who have served and continue to serve our countries during times of war, conflict, and peace. And I know some veterans among our customers and partners and staff, so thank you for your service. And we also recognize that we're scheduling it on a holiday for many, and so we'll make the recording available as soon as possible, as we normally do. Today's session is covered under the confidential information disclosure and is subject to change. Our agenda for today will do a wee bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get right into the release updates. We have about an hour on SMAX and half an hour on hybrid cloud management today. Throughout the session, please use the Q&A panel to log your questions. We've got a great group of experts here that will attempt to answer them during the session. And then if time at the end of the day or at the end of the session, we'll unmute the lines. So a little bit of housekeeping. I wanted to say welcome to our new customers. If this is your first release readiness webinar, this is something that we do with each quarterly release, and it's usually one or can be 2 or 3 sessions that will continue, where we'll just introduce you to the new capabilities. And for our information is targeted at business owners so that they understand the value of adopting the new capabilities, but also technical practitioners to start to understand some of the details of the offering, maybe some technical considerations, in terms of the implementation. We do have Micro Focus partners and employees on the line here with customers, but since they have a follow-on session immediately after this one where they can ask any questions that they have, just a reminder to them to leave this as much as possible for customer questions. Now, again, if you're new, the release readiness is part of the Practitioners Forum, and you'll see here some recent sessions for SMAX, SMA, SM, as well as HCM and HCMX. Lots of great content there with recording links to all of the previous sessions, and I highly recommend you to check those out and attend the sessions live if you can. Now, I have put a handout in the handout section with all of these links that I'm showing you here. But I will say that we're about to make a change, so you don't need to get too familiar with it if you are new to the sessions. The Learn form, which is linked at the very top row, is really your best place to get started and to subscribe. And there we'll walk you through the registration process for the Practitioner Forum meetings, and those are bi-weekly or monthly, depending upon the product. And then that is also where we advertise the release readiness sessions. But as I said, we're making some changes, and starting in January, we're going to be relaunching these Practitioner Forum sessions as user groups, and it will combine the registration for the regular meetings as well as the release readiness. So that's a nice simplification. If you're in the APJ time zone, because we repeat the session live for them, they have 2 registration links, but that's still better than doing it every quarter, we think. And we're really looking forward to your feedback and suggestions. So if you have ideas for either content or how to improve the sessions, or just even feedback to say whether or not you're finding them helpful, please do send that to me. I've also included in your handout these links to the new meetings. So again, they're not going to start until January, and when you get the meetings, they may or may not have some of all the sessions fleshed out, but you can get a jump on that and get registered so that you don't miss a session coming in the new year. And that's it for me with housekeeping, and I will turn it over to Steve.
Great, thank you, Tonya. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to walk through the SMAX 2020-11 November release updates. This is another in our series of quarterly releases for SMAX. So I've updated this slide. Actually, it didn't advance. Let me fix that. There we go. So I've updated this slide showing the quarterly releases, and the newest one with 2020-11 focused on our 2 top level functional improvements, catalog dev to prod and expense lines, but just want to make sure that you are reminded of the quarterly release cycle that we have. All right, so what are the highlights for this release? They fall into, I've grouped them into four areas. So the first area are improvements around the service catalog. And we've made some improvements around how user options are displayed. And then we have the improvement for package management for catalog content, which is our most voted on idea in Idea Exchange. We also have improvements in the area of asset management. So we're adding expense lines into the financial management module, really taking another big step forward in our asset management capabilities built into SMAX. And yet another major addition following the addition of software asset management a couple releases ago. And speaking of SAM, we're continuing to build on that, adding new content and expanding our reporting capabilities, which Pramila will talk about in a few minutes. The third category is the agent mobile capability, and we're providing early access to the development work that we're doing on agent mobile capabilities for iOS. And then we have a number of other features like improvements in studio capabilities, domain segmentation for native SACM, new authentication, supporting OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect. Some of those we may not discuss live today, so I encourage you to take a look at the release notes, and you can bring any questions you have on topics we don't have a chance to cover today to a future practitioner forum office hours session. And with that, let's go into service catalog. All right, so the first feature I want to talk about is package management for catalog data. And first, I want to just give a little bit of the history and background on package management. Package management is also called dev to prod. I think it's more often called dev to prod than package management, which is how it actually appears in the tool. And that's the capability to copy your configurations from your development tenant to your production tenant, or obviously from a development tenant to a test tenant ahead of that, if that's your process, or between two dev tenants. But it's really the mechanism that we've used over the years to allow you to configure the tool and then move those configurations between systems. And my slide will build. There we go. So at the beginning of SMAX, we had the full dev to prod. So we allowed you to use package management to package up all your configurations and move them to another system. We got feedback that our customers would like to move some of their configurations and not all of them. So with the May 2019 release, we introduced the granular dev to prod, where you can package just a subset of your configurations. After that, we've received feedback that the customers want to move not just their configurations, but also data. And in particular, they want to move their catalog data. So their offerings, the catalog offerings, those are data records. They're not just configuration, but you would like to, you voted very frequently on Idea Exchange that this was something you really wanted to see us add to the tool, the ability to build out your offerings, your catalog content on your development system, and then move that to your production system. When we were building out this feature, we've been considering two primary use cases. So this is use case one, so development to production use case. So just the flow is going to be you develop your new catalog content, making your changes in your dev tenant, the gray. You package it and export it. And then you go over to your production tenant or your destination tenant and you simulate the import. If there are any issues found in the simulation, you can review and correct those. Then you import it into your production tenant, validate and test, and then it's ready for your end users to use. The other use case is much more around using it with Studio and across organizations. So a content provider. That could be Micro Focus, it could be a partner, it could be one of you customers out there who wants to design and build something using the catalog, and then you're going to package it and export it, and then you can share it. For example, you could post it on the ITOM Marketplace, and you could do that just as catalog content, or you could combine it with maybe a studio module. So we have a number of modules or apps posted on the marketplace that have instructions for how to configure the portal to connect to that back end. Now with this improvement, we could repackage those to have both the studio content and the catalog content all together. Following the flow, then the consumer would pick that up, simulate, and maybe make any changes, import it, and use that content that was provided by the content provider. All right, going into some of the details around the package management. So you're probably curious what is included. So in terms of the entities, we are including category, service definition, offering, and fulfillment plans. Those are all part of the scope of this feature. And it's really the full content of those areas. So on offerings, yes, it does include user options. It includes images and attachments. It includes task plans, and all the aspects of the offering that you would expect are moved through the package management process. In terms of things that are attached to the catalog, so entitlement rules and asset models that are linked via many-to-many relationships to the catalog data will be included in the package. So those things move along with it. Other entities that are referenced through entity link, we just copy the link, the relation over, but we don't actually move those records. So we expect that if you're linking to other things like people or groups, that those entities exist in the destination system. So that's something you need to just think about as you're planning your move. So moving on to some other important information. So one of the challenges of moving data is the reconciliation process. So what we've done is we've added a new UUID attribute to the catalog entities, and that is used for reconciliation. So if the UUID matches, then we're going to do an update. If we don't find that, then we will create a new record in the target system. You can package just the catalog data on its own, or you can package it with configurations. So example, studio changes. Just a note for those of you who are doing this actively, we do limit the package management process to one job per tenant. They're queued up. So if you have multiple people in the system and multiple people are trying to do an export or an import, those will be queued, just so you know. And we found as we were going through this that it would be better if we had a dedicated control in terms of the package file size separate from attachment size. So there is a new setting in Suite Administration where you can set the file size that is supported. Default's 50 megabytes. If you are creating packages that are bigger than that, you can go in and adjust that if you need to. In terms of version compatibility, so no change on the top part here. So out-of-box applications need to be the same version. Custom or user-defined, customer-defined applications are forward compatible, and the catalog data also will be forward compatible. So something that you create, catalog content you create in 2020-11 can be loaded into 2020-02 and forward. In terms of getting ready to adopt package management, if you're an existing customer, if you have an existing system, so there's a few steps you'll want to follow. So first, you need to update to 2020-11, obviously, but for both your source and target systems, so production and development in kind of the way I'm thinking about it. So if you do have separate farms for those both need to be updated. Then there's a crawling upgrader that needs to be run on the production system, and that will go and create UUIDs for all of your catalog. Then you export your catalog using package management, and then you import that into your development tenant. So now you have UUIDs synchronized between those two systems. And as you make changes to your catalog on your development system, export it and import it, the reconciliation will be based off those aligned UUID values. So if you have any questions, please post them in the question manager. I see a couple have come in and are getting responses, so I'm going to carry on. Thank you for my team for helping out and answering questions. All right. Also in the area of catalog, we've made some improvements around user options. Three improvements. The first one is adding the ability for you to display guidance text to help the requesters understand and properly fill in the user options. We're doing it as a subtext, so you can see in the bottom screenshot here that there's a line between the label and the field, and that's where you put your help text. So, and here is a screenshot of how you define the help text. We've also added user option grouping, so the ability to have 3 levels of grouping of the user options on the offering. So you can kind of see it, the screenshot here shows how you build it out. So you could have hardware and then configuration and then a couple of user options under that. So this really allows you to put some structure on the user options, especially helpful when you have an offering with maybe a lot of user options. You can put them in groups, and that can help organize the requester's mind as they go through and need to fill out that information for you. So they can better understand the context. This, along with the help text, I think can be very powerful in making sure that the requester knows what you're expecting them to fill in, can hopefully improve the quality of the requests that you're getting into the system, make it easier for you to deliver and fulfill on those. And then pricing. So we've had the pricing information on user options for a long time, maybe from the beginning, I don't remember. But up until this release, when a user selected a user option that had a price related to it, the only way that the requester could see that is to see that the price of the request updated in the bottom of the form. So it wasn't really obvious how different selections were impacting the price that was being shown. So we had a request there was an idea created to show this pricing information in line in the request form itself. So you can see drop down here, listing 5 possible values and the price related to that. And with that, I'm going to see if I'm still logged into my system, and we'll do a short demo. All right, let's come here. All right, so I'm on my system, and on the portal side, we can come here into facilities. So we created some demo data here for the package management process. But the first thing I want to show you is some of these user option improvements. All right, so scroll down here. So the first, you can see the grouping here. So we have badge personalization. That's our top level grouping. Under that, we have badge options. When I expand that, then I see the user options that have been grouped under badge options. And I could have a second group under badge personalization if I wanted to. And user options work as normal. And then the second thing you can see here is that getting a card cover is a $10 additional cost, and we can see that right in line. And if I scroll down here, we see it's $5. And if I select this, we should see it go to $15. There it is. Also, so you can do it here on the checkbox. Also, if you define prices on a list, those are going to show up as well. And then if we scroll down a little bit more, so we can see there's a username as one of the user options. And we have put help text here to guide the user to know that this is the name that they want to show on their badge and not like some Windows username that they might think we want them to fill in. So this is what I want to see when I actually, what's going to be printed on my badge. All right, so that's a quick look at that. With that, I'm going to switch over to the agent side and go to package management, administration packages. All right, so we have one package defined here, and that's for that facilities management catalog content. As an example, just build it out for this. So under the module, if you want to move your catalog data, you select service portfolio and catalog, and then you'll have the related entities. If we select categories, so I can decide whether I want to include my configuration, so the changes in Studio, or just the data. In this case, I just want to move my catalog data. And I have the ability to filter it. So I don't want to move my entire catalog. I only want to move the facilities category. And if I want to change the filter, I can filter based on any of the fields you can do when you're filtering in categories. Like this is a so the display labels that. So I can make those changes. If we go to offerings, similar here, I'm filtering based on these 5 service definitions. I can change the filter to anything I can filter on offerings. And if I want to see exactly what the system is going to export, I can click on preview and we open a new tab and we apply that filter on the offering grid. So you can really see exactly what is going to be included in your export. So we see the list of the offerings that are going to be exported. So we'll go close that, come back here. I can also list the objects, all right, or export. All right, what's going on? Am I not logged in anymore? All right, those two functions are not really new. The list objects existed in package management before, just showing you what it might be different. Give it one more try. Yeah, there we go. All right, just needed to refresh. So when you list the objects, so we can see that we're including 12 data records, 12 attachments, and 1 rule for the offering. So let's go ahead and cancel that. Let's go here to options, and then I'll show you what it's like to simulate an import. Normally you would do this on a different system, not on the same one, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just do it here. And this should take about 30 seconds typically. And then when we imported this into another tenant, the load of these catalog items took about 1 minute. Here. So right now the system's going through, it's looking at everything that you've bundled as part of the packaging and checking if it's going to import correctly. So if there are any issues, consistency issues or other things, you'll get notified here with the warning messages, and then you can use that information to go and make the changes to make sure that you get a clean import when you do it into your production system. And with that, I'm going to go back to the slides. And that's my last slide for this section. So this is what the import actually looks like. So you can see 12 attachments, 18 data elements, 42 resource bundles, and the import of the facilities structure of the catalog on our system took about a minute. And with that, I will turn it over to Pramila. So let me make her the presenter, and we'll go into asset management topics.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone. So let me quickly share my screen.
Yes, I see it, but you're not in presentation mode yet.
There you go.
And
Okay.
now you are. Looks good.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So I'm going to talk about asset management and what enhancements we're releasing as part of 2020-11. So I would be covering expense lines as well as the improvements we did on the software asset management part of it. Let's go ahead and start with expense lines. So expense lines module is part of our enhancements for financial management module. Before I deep dive into it and tell you what is part of the release, I just wanted to explain you why expense lines. What is it that we are actually addressing with this functionality, and what are we capturing with it? So one of the biggest problems, that are the risk that we realize that businesses businesses, especially people in finance, face is having lack of transparency into the financial expenses made by their team. This indeed makes it very difficult to plan and allocate budgets to individual cost centers because we have little to no idea on the expenses made by teams on a particular cost center level or on a particular budget level. So we came up with a solution called expense lines. Through SMAX expense lines, our goal is to help track and manage this cost associated with different assets, and contracts, and from a centralized dashboard. This includes your devices, IAPs, licenses, services, subscriptions, and also your contracts that can be created and offered internally. As a result, there is a lot of transparency into spend made by each cost center, which provides better insights for financial manager on expenses, also resulting in optimization of spend and resources. Using the expense lines, you not only understand the expenses incurred at a point in time, but you can also calculate future predicted expenses for the entire fiscal year so that you can appropriately plan and adjust your budgets for the next fiscal years, or plan adjust the expenses for a particular team for that fiscal year. We provide an option to create expense lines through an automated schedule processes, and we also provide an option to actually do it through our manual processes. Like if there is something that you have to that there's a need for any manual creation of an expense line, something you have to overwrite, or some unforeseen expense that incurred, we provide an option to actually do a manual to create a manual expense lines. To top it all up, so leveraging SMAX reporting engine that we have, we provide the capability to get effective and quick insights into these expenses. You can build out these beautiful graphs, and you can really understand your spend per cost center, or per team, or even to a level of per individual, to understand and analyze where how and where your budget is splitted or your expenses are incurring. I really, understanding how complex this module is, I really wanted to deep dive and talk about the components of expense lines that actually make it working. But then, I want to take up some use cases so that most of us on this call really understand and can relate to. So the first use case I took up, I had 3 user personas on this. One is Eve, who's the end user. And then Eve can be anybody, like a developer or the end user who's actually consuming that service. Then I have Bob, who's Eve's manager. Let's say, for example, Bob manages the cost center. And then he's responsible for all the transactions that happen for Eve, and then all the budget of Eve comes from Bob's cost center. Lastly, we have Sarah, who actually owns the service and offers it to internal team consumption through a subscription. Sarah could be anybody, like an IT team member, and Sarah also handles a cost center. So Sarah basically procures a service or a laptop for us, and then she actually provides it as an internal service offering within the organization. So going back to our use case, so when Eve, the customer, makes a request for a service offering created by Sarah, which let's say for example has an initial cost of $1,000 and a recurring cost of $30 per month. Please understand that this initial cost and the recurring costs referred here are set by Sarah while creating the offering, and may or may not be the same as the actual cost Sarah paid by procuring that service. Getting back to the use case, so when Eve makes a request for this service, it goes to Bob, who was Eve's manager, for approval. Bob can either approve or deny it. It goes through that entire request approval process. And when he actually approves the request, and the request is fulfilled, an expense lines with a debit chargeback of $1,000 is created on Bob's cost center against Eve. At the same time, an expense line of credit chargeback is of $1,000 is created on Sarah's cost center. Additionally, because there is a recurring cost of $30 every month, system creates these projected expense lines of $30 for both debit and credit for the remainder of the fiscal year. Projected expense lines of $30 actually become incurred at the end of the recurring period. It could be a monthly recurring period, or however they set it. So at the end, let's say at the end of each month, there is a debit that happens on Bob's cost center for $30, and then there's a credit that happens on Sarah's cost center for $30. Whenever Eve requests for the cancellation of subscription, all the projected expense lines that are after that date are not incurred automatically gets cancelled. So this is just a recurring use case on how there is a one-time cost, there's a recurring fees, and how they get cancelled, and how it's totally linked to the subscription attributes. The second use case I want to talk about is basically multiple user personas and multiple use cases. I carried forwarded Bob and Sarah from the previous example, and I included a financial manager and the financial manager role. So the biggest value for each of the use cases listed here is having insights into their budgets at any point in time. In Bob's use case, for example, it's about understanding what are the total expenses made by my team at any given point in time, or what is my total remaining budget for the fiscal year, so I can plan my expenses accordingly. In Sarah's case, it's about understanding how her services are performing again at any given point in time, and knowing the total debit or credit expenses generated over the service or cost center. For financial manager role, who actually oversees multiple cost centers and multiple Sarahs and Bobs, his role is much bigger. He wants to understand the total spend made by each cost center, and what is against the allocated budget, what is the remaining budget, and how do he plan the budget for the next fiscal year accordingly. So these are some of the most important critical use cases that we have addressed in this release, so that it will be helpful for each person with a varied role to get that information about expense lines. Please let me know if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what do we have as part of our November release. So talking about the building blocks, what we have as part of our November release, the first and the foremost thing is defining that cost allocation rule engine, which actually is the heart of our expense lines, because this is where we define the mapping and rules for the expense lines to be triggered. We define all the conditions and rules in here. So this is basically made up of two different rule types, which is chargeback allocation rules and expense allocation rules, which we fondly just call as years and cars. But yeah, expense allocation rules are used to report internal and external expenses, like the chargeback allocation rules. Whenever there is an internal, like in Sarah's case, when she actually provided that service internally, to report that debit and credit that flows between teams internally, we use chargeback allocation rules. Whereas the amount she actually spent to procure that service or device is listed down in expense allocation rules, because it's external. We also facilitate the creation of manual expense lines as part of a November release. So we do have this beautiful automated robust system which automatically generates expense lines based on the pre-configured conditions. But we also provide an option to create manual expense lines. We do help we do provide an option for projected or forecasted expense lines. We do it for the end of up until the end of the fiscal year, and whenever a new fiscal year starts, it automatically updates for that fiscal year. So using this functionality, the biggest goal is to provide that ability or transparency for an organization to understand their budgets, not only that have incurred their expenses that have not only incurred, but also that is planned for future, or know what is something that they for sure know that is going to occur for the remainder of the fiscal year. We do have some out-of-the-box reports that we are providing as part of this release. One of them is the ability for the cost center owner to see all the chargebacks that are made on his cost center. It is both debit and credit. The other report that we're facilitating is to see the actual spend per cost type that is made by his team by his team for a cost center owner. So these are two reports we're providing out of the box, but then of course you can go ahead and and create reports that actually fit your business needs using our reporting system in SMAX. These are some of the mock-ups just to show you how the system looks and feels, but then I'm just going to go in and demo the system in a second here. Let me actually quickly shift my view and then demo the system. Let me see if I'm logged in. Yeah. Okay, so I'm actually logged in into the agent interface here. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Sure. Okay. So I'm logged into the agent interface here. I'm going into, so once I turn on my expense lines functionality under my application settings, my expense lines automatically become active. And then when I go into my financial module, I could see my expense lines and cost allocation rules. So the first and the foremost step that we do is, creating those cost allocation rules, because as I said, this is what actually defines or triggers your expense lines. This is the rule engine that actually triggers the entire expense line creation. So you can just go ahead and create a new expense line. You can define the rule type as we discussed. It could be an year for external. It could be a chargeback allocation if there is internal. Chargeback allocation creates both debit and credit expense lines, whereas expense allocation only creates debit expense lines. And then you can define what type of rule is it. Is it for, so once I choose the rule type, I can actually go ahead and define what is it that I'm defining it on, and then I can start filling in all these parameters. So for our example, I have actually created two cost allocation rules, because in our example we said that Sarah is going to procure that service as part of a contract, and then she's actually going to provide that service to internal customers as part of subscription. So I created two cost allocation rules, one for contract and one for subscription. So I choose the rule type to be expense allocation for the contract because it's external facing. I choose it as contract, and then I just fill in all the description. If there's any start date and end date, you can definitely enter in there. And if there's any owner, you can put in an owner in there. And then this condition phase in here actually defines if there's any conditions that you want to put in here. For example, you want to create this cost allocation rule specifically for contracts of type maintenance or of purchase. So you can define all those conditions in this filter statement here. For mine, I just put it generic against all the contracts, but if there's anything specific, you can definitely put it in here. And then when you go into allocation, you can actually map fields from your source entity. When I say source here, the source is contract. So you can map fields against this, because SMAX is very flexible, and you can create all these custom fields. So you can definitely go ahead and map those fields if there is something that doesn't match your criteria here. And you can define cost center, cost type, currency, initial amount, expense date, and everything. Because in my example, my contract is not recurring, so I didn't choose recurring. But if you choose recurring, you automatically can put in recurring amount, periods, and everything. I'm going to quickly show you one with recurring. For subscription, I did make a recurring one. So I'm just going to show one for recurring. So when I go into my subscription, which is a chargeback allocation, and look at my allocation rule engine, I made it recurring, and you can see the amount, period, start date and end date. All this again is field mapping. So it's just a field mapping with a source entity. We do provide some cost allocation rules out of the box. So whatever you're seeing on the screen here is provided out of the box. But then if there's anything custom that you want to create, you can definitely create a new one and that matches your criteria. So as in our example where we created a contract for procuring the service. So I did actually created a contract for our example. So when you go into your contracts and then enable that expense allocation in your studio module, you can just come in here and whatever new contract you create and make it into a phase of active, it automatically triggers an expense line. In our example, I created a contract for purchase, and then I put a price for that contract of $1,500 and an initial cost of $1,500. I did not choose any recurring for it. And then, sorry, I put a cost center against it and the cost type. This is already in the phase of active, but then if you look at the workflow, if it is, from as soon as it changes from sign to execute, your expense line of debit would be triggered on Sarah's cost center. You can go into your finance tab and actually look at the expense lines that are generated against this. Because ours is a one-time, you can see the expense line it created for $1,500 or debit expense lines on the San Diego cost center for type software, and the status is incurred. Now, when Sarah actually publishes this service offering to the end customer, and end customer Eve, as an example, goes in and requests for that service and actually gets that service, or goes through that entire approval process if there is any, and actually gets that service as a subscription, we'll see what happens then. So I did create a subscription for us just to make it easy for us to look into. Let's say this is the subscription that was created by Sarah, and Eve actually got the subscription, or she actually procured that. So as soon as the subscription becomes active and is assigned to Eve, so there is a debit expense line that is created against Eve for $50, because Sarah just put the amount of $50 against that subscription, when she was actually giving it to Eve, or when she was publishing it on the service catalog. So there's a $50 of debit that happens on Eve's cost center, which is Shanghai cost center, and then there's a credit that happens on Sarah's cost center, which is San Diego cost center, $50. You could notice that both of them are in the status projected because there was no initial amount that Sarah requested for any of it, and it's only a recurring amount which happens at the end of the next month, or so it's a monthly recurring amount. And you only see two lines in here because this happens only up until the end of fiscal year, and there is just one more month left for the fiscal year. As soon as the next fiscal kicks in, it automatically pulls out all the expense lines for that fiscal year. Also, the other view to see expense lines is actually going into financials and going into the expense lines and viewing all the expense lines in here. You can see expense lines by parent type, if it's incurred or projected, or by date. You could filter out it by anything, or by cost type, cost center type, and you could bucket out and filter out by anything.
Pramila, just sorry to interrupt, but just to let you know that we're near the end of your time, we just need to wrap that up.
Sure. One last quick thing that I wanted to talk about just before we go there. You can definitely go ahead and create a manual expense line by clicking in here and choosing the display label, amount, cost center, and debit, credit, and cost type and all that, and you can link it to a parent. One thing that we're doing as part of our future enhancements is moving this entire thing up under the source, so that you can just go into device and create your manual expense lines from there instead of coming here and doing it. So, but then you can definitely go in and create here. I wanted to talk about SAM quickly before the end of the time. So shifting back to my presentation. So as part of the November release, there are two big things that we're bringing in SAM. First is the reporting engine. I know this is one of the biggest asks from many customers, the ability to customize those amazing reports that you see on the SAM dashboard for compliance management. So we did come up with that as part of this release, and you should be able to actually do those customized reports as part of the November release. So we're leveraging SMAX reporting engine for this. So you can go into SMAX reports and then you can generate the reports. But then when you dig deep dive into it, you're actually sent to the SAM dashboard, and you can actually look into the different components that create those consumption reports and different elements that come and play into it. So we do support customization of reports as part of the November release. Other thing about the content that we're actually bringing in is IBM ILMT. So you can use IBM license metric tool and big fix inventory integration to create a connection between IBM servers and SMAX SAM. We use it by leveraging UCMDB integration with ILMT. You can get all the hardware, software, IBM consumption information from IBM into SAM, and then of course you could generate all those compliance reports to understand your products and spend for IBM products in particular on the dashboards. So all of that, all of that is available out of the box. Those compliance reports are available out of the box for IBM as of today and as of the November release. And of course, you can customize it as you need it. That's pretty much about what we have for SAM and expense lines. Please ask if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm handing it back to Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramila. All right, I'm going to go ahead and present my screen again, and I'm going to turn it over to Dean to talk about our next couple topics. So starting with SMAX Agent Mobile.
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good,
you have
great.
Control of my mouse if you want to advance the slides, or you can tell me.
Okay, we'll see how we go. So I want to thank everyone to go through our new SMAX Agent Mobile Early Access, and the early access is very important. So Steve, I think if we can go to the next slide, that would be really useful. So as you know, with our mobile app capability with SMAX to date, it's obviously been focused on end user capability. As of the November release, we are making available as part of our early access program some of the agent capability for SMAX. I think this is one of those features that a lot of you have been very keen to get your hands on and get access to this and start seeing how you could utilize it within your organizations. So we decided to go with a slightly different approach and with what we're calling our early access program to get this in your hands and start to get a good collaborative feedback with yourselves. So as part of the November release, we'll be introducing the first set of field agent capabilities added to the native mobile app, allowing you to do work around request records and obviously being able to support field visits. It will need the 2020.11 release to be in your system to be on that particular version. And we have a setting in the application settings that enables you to turn this on or off. Nice and simple toggle. Once you do that, anyone that is using the iOS app, and we are only having this on iOS for the moment, and I can talk about that in more detail if we need to, but you'll then have a option within your account to switch to the early access agent mobile capability, and that will bring you up the view of your inbox to start looking at the request tickets, and we'll talk about some of those screenshots in the next couple of slides. Couple of things to make you aware of with the way that we're doing this. With early access, it's not something that is fast as something you can get support on directly. If you do have issues with the mobile app, obviously you can raise support tickets for those, but if it's anything related to the agent mobile feature, we are handling support in a slightly different route. And I would very much recommend that you reach out to us in product management to get access to the way that we manage that if you are going to go down the route and test this with your environments. In fact, I would absolutely love for nearly everyone on this call, if possible, to be part of that, so we can collectively gain your feedback, do some interviews potentially on how you might utilize the capability, and look how we develop it as we go forward. But the key thing is that, as we said, it's not obviously the standard support. It's going to be a slightly different route, and some functionality will be visible but disabled, and I'll give a couple of examples of that on the next couple of slides. Okay, yeah, do you want to go to the next slide, please, Steve? So we'll put in a couple of screenshots just to show some of the capability and what's in there. So when you access the Agent Mobile capability, you've got things like global search. Actually, this is not just limited to requests, it's limited to a couple of extra people records and CIs as well now. We also then have our default queues, so what we're classing as my inbox and my group's inbox, so what's assigned to me or assigned to the groups that I'm a member of. And obviously, as you can see, that there's some basic filtering capabilities in there, so the screenshot on the right. Sorting is a function that is currently disabled, so that is something that we are working on. But as we said, as part of the way that we're working with this early access, you'll see the feature, but when you try to click on it, nothing will happen. The fields in the view that we have there are predefined right now, so we are going to look at that longer term, but we've kind of looked at what's the key data that we want to show. So obviously the record type, the ID, the title, the priority, and obviously where you are within the current phase. Next slide, please. Then when you drive into the detailed record view, you can see that there's a standard header at the top, which is similar to what you see in the view, the queue on the previous slide. As part of that, though, you've also got some quick actions to jump into, call a user or even email them. That will actually launch the call option on your phone or your default email application that's been set up on your mobile. The rest of the form and visibility there is actually something that you can customize. So we've already set this up so that within Studio, you go to request, choose the mobile request preview form, and you can modify which fields are visible on there. And then obviously they will be available to view at that point. We then have obviously a couple of bottom functions, and again, this is where we are doing a bit of work where you've got visibility of the button, should we say, like with solutions, but there's no actual actions that occur when clicked on. In regards to the actions button, most of that at the moment is related to phase changes, but we're going to add some extra things in there like assign to me, and maybe in things around helping with resolution or other quick features that we're going to roll out longer term. You'll also notice that there's a couple of swipeable tabs or swappable sections, so details, discussions, involved CIs. Involved CIs again is something that will appear later, but the discussions, I think I've got a screenshot of that on the next slide. And we also obviously have the ability to edit the request and go through that. Do we go next slide? Brilliant. On the edit record, you can obviously save the changes, make any changes to any of the fields. We've also got some capabilities in the rich text editor, which is different depending on where you are. So if it's a field that's on the record as opposed to the commenting, there's a few extra features or slightly different features. So things like the public, internal, and purpose. You also have the ability to at someone within the rich text editor, which automatically makes them a follower of the request, which I think is a really cool little feature that we've added. And we've also included some scanning of barcodes as well on that. So you can scan a barcode as part within a rich text editor. Likewise, that actually the scan barcode also works in search, which is quite a cool feature to quickly identify details on a CI. But also you can add attachments and obviously do some basic formatting of the rich text, or maybe even of the description where it's already been formatted. Okay, next slide. Probably one of my favorite little features that we've got in there is our new activity, and this is kind of a merging of discussion comments and the actual audit history on the record. So we've kind of collapsed the two together because it gives us a nice clear picture of all the activities that's occurring on the record in that nice ordered format, with all the field updates kind of collapsed down into little groups, but you can expand those to see what has been changed, just like just similar to seeing what you see in the web function. And again, if you've got the appropriate permissions, say like you've made a comment and you want to edit it, you can go and edit it from here as well. I think that's it, isn't it, Steve? I think on the Agent Mobile. I think it's the last slide.
Thank you, Dean, for the update on Agent Mobile Early Access. Next, we're going to move into some miscellaneous topics, and Dean, you're up again for the Marketplace updates.
Okay, that's great. So I've got a couple of slides that I wanted to present on the Marketplace. So the first one is about our new SMAX Studio apps that have been released since the last release readiness. So we've had 2 Micro Focus ones. I don't know if anyone heard I had fireworks in my background. I think that was obviously because I'm relating to the SMAX App Challenge. But we had our overall SMAX App Challenge winner, which was the Quality Audit Management for SMAX, so doing continual service improvement. We also had our Enhanced ITSM Award winner, which is around change risk assessments on your change process. And also from one of our partners, IOCO, we had our Customer Collaboration Award for their learning activity management app, which I think was a really cool app as well. The color coding, just so you're aware, the blue ones are ones that have been published via ourselves as Micro Focus, so you can get obviously standard support for those. The one produced by IOCO is classed as community, so if you need assistance with that, that's normally done through the community pages online. And I look forward to seeing more apps over the next quarter, thanks to the new features that's available for catalog management, because I think that's going to be really cool to update the existing apps and new ones. Next slide. A couple of other updates I wanted to mention as well. They are available free, are our Update Patch Manager and our Support Assistant. So the Update Patch Manager is primarily designed to run in the background to help fix any potential known issues and make sure you get a smooth version update as you go from different version to versions. Typically, we do minor updates on this based on things that have been identified through the support processes since a release has come out. So this one has got some new fixes for anyone that is maybe on an older release of 2020-02 and need to move to 05. The Update Patch Manager also has updates for previous updates as well, but that's just what we added in this release. And the SMA Support Assistant has got some new capabilities. We've added some new performance health checks that allows you to even look at how long things are running in the background. And we also have a new check which gives you a report on user logins and the allocated licenses. It's not license consumption, it is more about what's identified in the log files, but allows you to extract that out to start to do some analysis on potential how users are logging in, which users are logging in, when they're logging in, and potentially what licenses have been allocated to them. And maybe you want to look at maybe how you want to change that going forward. I will also say as well, we did obviously a practitioner forum session a few weeks ago where we talked about some of the capabilities, and I recommend anyone, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch that webinar. Admittedly, it's me talking, but there's some excellent content in there about what the support system is trying to do and some of our future plans. Thank you, Steve. Back to you.
Thank you, Dean. Just 2 more slides, and then we'll turn it over to the HCMX section. Okay. One thing I tried to do when I'm building out this presentation was to highlight where we're delivering new capabilities based on your feedback that you've submitted in through Idea Exchange. So I want you to just make sure that I'm emphasizing to you that we do look at all of your ideas as they come in. We do look at which ideas are getting voted on and use that when we're building out our releases. So here's a selection of ideas that were submitted and then delivered as part of this release. So if you're already actively participating in Idea Exchange, submitting ideas, voting on ideas, thank you. If you're not, I encourage you to do so. That's a great way you can provide input for our product planning. And just a reminder that we have other webinars as well, release readiness webinars. So the SMA SM Asset Manager and Connect It Webinars have already taken place. If you are interested in those topics and did not get a chance to attend, you can watch the recordings. And we have webinars upcoming for Service Manager 970 release as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Pradeep. Let me make you presenter.
And let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about what's new in the HCMX module as part of this release webinar. And HCMX is the one of the newest member on top of the SMAX Foundation. So we request your some attention on that, and then see if it helps to solve some of the use cases in your environment, and then we can talk more about it in detail one-on-one if you're more interested. So I'll be focusing more today on what's new in 2020.0, 2020.11. However, if you see, we are releasing quarterly along with the SMAX releases, and it's focusing on the cloud management use case, where in the 2020.11, the focus is on cloud image aggregation and making sure that content can be easily accessed within the solution, and some focus on the API documentation, and then focusing on public cloud spend limits. So these are the high level focus areas. Before that, getting into deep, as I said, it's a youngest member in this SMAX Foundation family. I would like to remind that we do have those. It's also the successor of our some of the products, HCM and CSA, which was focusing on cloud management use cases. Now we have taken a core capability of the HCM and CSA, which was about the service design and orchestration, which we ship more than 8,000 out of the box orchestration, so that you can build your service design and automation quickly for any new kind of cloud service offering. On top of that, HCM and CSA also offered the cloud cost governance and then cloud service image aggregation capability. So we have taken all those capabilities and core feature and merged onto the SMAX Foundation, which means we are replacing the traditional marketplace portal with the new service portal, which has many more advantages than our earlier marketplace portal. It is a next gen, comes with the AI enabled capabilities with virtual agents, natural language processing, and also it has mobile app. So one of the benefit of the convergence that we are leveraging the same service portal exactly for cloud management use cases as well as the service management use cases. On top of that, the catalog management part also comes from the SMAX Foundation, which allows you to create cloud services more flexibly, as well as you can apply the dynamic rule-based governance, including a multi-level approval. You can make sure that you have a enhanced oversight onto the whole cloud service fulfillment process. And finally, all data is synchronized into the native SECA module, where you can look at even the more use cases like impact analysis and all you can visualize through the common data model itself. As a foundation, it is available on to the BYOK, bring your own Kubernetes, and the whole SMAX Foundation is built on the SaaS level of multi-tenancy. To be sure that the product is not available on the SaaS form of Micro Focus, but when I say SaaS enabled multi-tenancy, which means that the customers can deploy the solution and they can have multiple tenants, and for each tenant they can use a specific capability for like cloud management or service management or both. So we are allowing the customer to choose whether they want to use the solution as a cloud management solution or service management solution or as a combined solution, and that option is available at tenant level. With this, if the customer is using both the cloud management and service management, everything is pre-integrated. It's just like turning on a switch and then you get more capability and more use cases. So if you're using both, once the cloud service subscription is fulfilled through a cloud management subscription, you can also create a incident management or change management process automatically as part of your ITSM processes. So that's the way you can easily enhance the capability of managing a cloud services through a converged solution. So this is a quick recap, and then we have our product page where is the detailed a summary of all the features of HCMX and how it works, and then is provided, and you can watch it online, as well as if you need, you can reach out to us and we can have a set up one-on-one session and discuss about it. So message, what we want to give it, that we wanted to bring a unified service delivery mechanism on a common architecture of cloud management, service management, asset management, enterprise service management. So single foundation to deliver all the different management solutions, and which is composable at runtime based on the license customer uses for a specific tenant. However, the portal remains the same interface across the various aspects, and then it gives the seamless experience, both agent side as well as the consumer side, whether they're using only cloud management or service management, or both together. So that's the way we are innovating in this area, and then trying to make sure that if large customer using a multiple solution, they get a lower TCO, and they have to manage a single platform for all the things, a single install, single upgrade. So these are the different advantages they get it if they use more management solution out of this Converse Foundation. So with that, I will get into the 2020.11 release highlights, and please feel free to drop your questions on the question board if you have any generic question on product or specific to release or anything, or even you want to set up a one-on-one session, just drop there and then we'll make a note of it and then reach out to you one-on-one. So in 2020.11, I'm not going to talk about each and every feature because we have a demo lineup, but I'm going to, at high level, talk about what was the objective we're trying to achieve in 2020.11. As you understood, we are a successor of the HCM and CSA, or existing cloud management solutions, and HCMX is a new version of it. We had some of those gaps from CSA to HCM, which was not addressed in HCMX, and we have addressed them. And with that, we are almost closed all important and critical gaps, and one of them was the cloud image aggregation feature. So that feature is an example of the gap. We have put it. Content store is another example. We have improved it, and most of these features we are not just porting, we are also improving and adding more capability than earlier. So it's kind of scale up. And then we are also able to deliver some of the customer ID exchange and enhancement request over the time on CSA and HCM, as well as some of the requests has come on the HCMX side as well. For example, we did develop the way in which the public cloud cost report you can save with the filters. So we had a public cloud cost reports where you can apply the filter and slice and dice and data, and you can create your own view, but those views could not be saved. So if the user loses the screen, go to the different URL and then comes back, he loses all the filters. So we provided a way he can save it, and then he can again recreate the same view easily by clicking on a saved view. So this is the example of that. Enhancements and all, we are also able to do that. Stephen has already talked about a lot of service portal enhancements. So all gets applicable for cloud management as well. So we are able to now do more with this Converse Foundation for even a cloud management use case, and we are able to leverage some of the enhancement on catalog management and service portal enhancements into that, for example, user options and all. So with that, I would give the control to my colleague Alex, and he would be showing the demo of some of these features and then talking about them in a little bit more in detail. So meanwhile, if you have any question, you post, so I'll be answering while he's demoing it. Thank you. Alex, can you take it up?
Yeah, thanks a lot, and I hope my screen is visible.
Yep, I can see that.
Thank you. Good. So let's get started on the HCMX demo. I think Pradeep already listed out all the features that we are introducing in the 2020.11, and I'm going to showcase each and everything. And most of it are already, with respect to the service portal enhancements, are already covered in the SMAX demo, so I may not repeat it here. So to start with, I want to cover the content management. So what is the purpose of the content management? As you know, we ship out of the box capsules, which will help us to integrate with any public cloud provider that includes Azure, AWS, GCP, and even the private cloud hypervisors like vCenter and SCVM and Hyper-V. And if you have to develop your own capsules, and you don't need to actually individually deploy each of the artifacts that includes the design, the contents and all the stuff. So you can package it in a capsule format, and then you can get it in the on your desktop, and then you can actually deploy it from here. And we also have multiple capsules which are available in the IDAM Marketplace portal, which are tagged in the HCMX. You can also deploy it from here, and this is a very intuitive portal where it will even give you if there is anything wrong with your capsule, and it will also give you the progress bar. So that's the new feature which we have introduced in the content store within the HCMX. So the next feature I'm going to talk about is the image aggregation feature. So the image aggregation feature is something like we have introduced in the HCMX in the 2020.11, which will help us to aggregate multiple services from different marketplace portal of public cloud as well as the private cloud hypervisors. So what you see on the screen is the public cloud providers which are already integrated. So we, as I mentioned, we support the major public cloud provider, the AWS and Azure, and the vCenter. So what it does, basically, it helps me to collect all the public cloud images from the respective marketplace portal. As you see, there is a number here, which are the number of items which are collected, and it will help me to locate the right service and create an offering. And also, I can actually configure the respective regions, which will help me to pick the necessary services or the right services from the respective region. It also collects the price information, other details for to give more detail about a particular service. And it's simple to configure, where you just need to provide the access credentials for these cloud provider, and same goes for the vCenter, where I have got like 350 plus templates in my vCenter, and that is getting aggregated. So the benefit of the feature again here is to reiterate, instead of clicking like 10 to 12 steps to locate the right service on a particular cloud, we aggregate and we help you to locate the right service from one single pane of glass. And you don't need to go to multiple portals in search of multiple services. So, and we also provide an option to give the price information so that you can cross compare and then locate the right services and offer it to your end users. So this is one of the option which you can choose. And then maybe if I want to offer a Tomcat server, and maybe from a provider Bitnami, which is commonly used, and I can choose between Azure or AWS. Maybe if I have to go with AWS, I can select the regions which are already configured in the resource provider, and then accordingly the price information will be reflecting in the view price information UI, and then I can do a cross comparison. So all I'm doing here is selecting the list of region which I want to expose to the end user. So as you see, I have selected across geography, and I will also get the list of instance sizes, which wherein along with instance sizes, I will also get the price information. So let me configure some default values, like for example, T2, in the range of T2, maybe some 4 or 5 services which I want to expose to my end users, so they can actually pick the information, pick the necessary instance sizes from here. And if I click on the pricing details, I will get the complete information of each of the instance size prices across these regions, so that it will help me to understand what is the price for per year, and for which instance size on which region, so that I can modify, I can go back and modify, or maybe if I look at that, maybe in the APJ region, I see the price is a bit costly. I may want to remove it, but whereas in international and US, I see it's less. Maybe I want to keep it. So you can decide whichever is makes more sense, and whichever is cost effective and meets your business needs. And more importantly, once you select the services, you have an option to directly publish it for the catalog admin to create an offering, which will help for the time to value. Or if I can skip this validation, of course, and I can publish it directly, or if it needs to be enhanced. For example, if I want to add more number of software along with it, or if I want to enhance the existing AWS with much more intelligence to add some EBS volume and all those stuff, I can still do that by just simply importing this services into my service designer. And then in the service designer, I will get an option to add more number of components as you see on the screen, it automatically takes me to the service designer, and I get library of components. So I can choose from any of the component library which is applicable for this AWS. So maybe, for example, I want to attach a EBS volume along with the AWS image, and then once the VM gets provisioned, it will automatically attach it. So this is a typical example where if you want to enhance the service before you offer, you could pull it to the design and publish it, or you have also an option to directly publish it to the service catalog administrator, so that the catalog administrator can quickly create an offering out of it. Again, just to recap, it is more of time to value, and you don't need to run around with different portals. All the information with respect to the price and the instances are available in one single pane of glass. And the same user experience for the other cloud service portal, and even for the private cloud, as you see on the screen, it aggregates like number of templates from my vCenter. So it is the same user experience where I can click on it and create a published design or a design which will help me to enhance further. So that's the future about the image aggregation. The next thing I want to show is the pause and resume. So before that, I want to show a use case here wherein just before this a demo, I just created few subscription. In one of the subscription did not go through, and it is still in the pending state, and I may raise a SMAX ticket which will be assigned to an operator, and the operator now needs to debug why it is still not completed. So I go into so this is the WordPress application which I just triggered just before this demo, but it has not gone through. So let's see why it has not gone through and how the operator can resolve quickly and without impacting the end user, and also save more time here. So in order to do that, the agent portal, I go to the agent portal, and then I go to the deployment operations where I see the request fulfillment details and the subscriptions. I see the WordPress is still in the paused state, and if I go click on it, I see there is a flag which is coming up, resume provisioning. Maybe I need to understand why it has failed. So I go into this, and then I hide the property. It is not yet populated because it has not yet provisioned, and I go to the events to find it has failed, and I click on it to see where exactly the problem is, and I go to the operation orchestration flow. It looks like the API did not go through because of the proxy issue. So I may want to go check where exactly I have configured the proxy and correct it. So if you look at in the provider where you configure the proxy and the connection details, so I go as operator, look into this, and I need to reset. So this is not working. So I may want to reset with a different proxy. So I go and select the one which is working, and then I save this. So ideally this should fix the issue, and I come to the operation screen and select the service. Now I have an option to resume provisioning. So here I get two options. One is like skip failed actions and rerun failed actions. So ideally I should run rerun because the provision did not go through, and I did not execute any manual step to skip this action. As you understand, if you have already executed a manual step to fix the issue, always you can go ahead and choose the skip failed actions. But if the tool needs to rerun the action, you go with a rerun failed action. So now I'm going to choose rerun failed action. So this is going to trigger further deployments, and it is going to complete the fulfillment, and the end user will get the WordPress application. So there are two again benefits. One is of course for the operations manager, they don't need to look for multiple logs or multiple files to understand where exactly the issue. It's all available in one single UI. And for the end user, they don't need to recreate the request again right from the scratch. So the admin can actually resume the execution from the failed state, and the fulfillment or the service will be available for the end user on time. So that's the benefit of this pause and resume feature. So next thing I'm going to talk about the cost governance. As Pradeep mentioned, we have introduced the filters, but I'll come to it a little later. But more importantly, there are some questions around the cloud cost limits and the spend limits. How are we managing it? do we send any notification? So this is the feature which we have introduced in 2020.11, which will help me to set a spend limit for a public cloud account. And in general, we support integration with public cloud provider, and we create multiple reports as you see on the screen. There are like cloud, compute, storage, and network, different set of reports which are available. On top of it, we also discover multiple cloud accounts, whatever you configure on the provider. And once I create a spend limit, I can attach those accounts over here. Like for example, I can select the Azure accounts, and these are some of the sub accounts, and I can configure it over here so that this tool can track the spend limit, whatever I've set, and then it will report whether it has exceeded the budget or whether it is within the budget. So here it has actually exceeded the budget, and for the other accounts it is still within the budget, so it is all good. But where do I set the configuration? So it is simple. So you go to the spend limits and you get a UI to add the configuration, maybe like for example $500, and you can give the USD, and you give the dollar information, and then you want to set the cadence for you want to track for monthly or a quarterly or early, and then you give the notification information to whom and all it needs to. The tool should send the notification when the threshold reaches whatever you have already set. So this is a simple configuration but effective to track how much you're spending and then report when the spend limit exceeds. And of course, from here, once I know that there is some budget which is exceeded, I can go to the reports to find what exactly where exactly I've spent and which user I've spent, and all those stuff you can get it from these reports, and it is already filtered based on the budget as you see on the screen. And of course, you can also filter based on multiple other options which are available over here. And talking about filters, as Pradeep mentioned, right? So we have introduced an option to save the filter. So let me give an example. So if I'm a business operations manager and I want to look for maybe let me go to the default view. So this is the view I will get usually, and there won't be any filters. And if I want to look for the information on the large instance sizes, which typically cost me a lot, so I want to understand more about this, and then I want to get a filtered data, so I can go click on all this information once, and maybe and then I can apply this. So this gives me the filter view, and next time if I come and I know that I'm particularly interested in this large size instance size, so I want to pull only those data. So what I can do is I can just save this view simply, and I can set it as large size instance and save it. So the next time when I come, automatically I can just go select this X large items, and then this data will be populated. I can download it and then, or I can take a snapshot and then send it to the stakeholders. And so this is the benefit of this feature. And one more thing we want to what we have introduced is to on the configuration side. So let me go to the cloud data configuration, where in the previous version of the HCMX, where if you configure AWS cloud billing data, it will pull from the previous history, and it includes many of data actually, and it may even go millions of records, which you may not need to understand the 4-year-old records. But here we have given now an option to configure the period, where for example, let me take an example of the AWS, and I'm going to just give some default values. And password, and so this is just for an example. I'm just giving it to configure S3 bucket path. And next, if I give, it'll automatically give me an option to set the history information which I need to collect from. So if I click on it, it'll give me from when I have to collect it, from when this tool should collect the information from. So maybe I want to start from January, the whole of the year, and I want to get the data only for this year from Jan to till date. So I just go select it, and automatically the tool will pull those data, and it will list it for me, and then all the reports will be based on these data actually. So that's again an added advantage, so that I don't need to be, I don't need to, analyze more number of data, but I have like, whatever is required and whatever is really required necessary, that's all I will be exposed to, and then I can actually slice and dice and use it to further optimize or do some reporting to report to the stakeholders. So these are the major features which we have introduced, as I walked you through, like the content store, the image aggregation, option to select any services on the marketplace portal that are configured, which are AWS and Azure, and of course the vCenter, which gives the price information, and you can compare between the instance sizes, between the regions, and then you can locate and create a design with the published state, or maybe without that, if you want to enhance, you can also still do that. And the benefit is again the time to value. And the third one is about the pause and resume, where it helps both the end user as well as for the operations team. It helps them to resume by fixing the issue immediately, and end user need not to create the request from the scratch. And the fourth one is applying the filters, so that whenever I go to the report section, I can go download whatever really required for me. And then here in this billing data collection, I can just set the period so that it will collect only the mentioned period. So of course we want to cover more, and please do reach out to us, and we will be happy to do a one-on-one demo with you, and we can go in detail. And expense lines, which is already demoed by the SMAX team, it is still applicable for HCMX on the subscriptions entity. And feel free to reach out to us how expense lines will work on the subscription on a cloud offering. I'll be happy to show the information. And yeah, I think pretty much that's all I wanted to cover. And over to you, Pradeep.
Yeah, and please do check out the online documentation we can share on API, and also this is one of the things which is used by some of the customers in the past. And then you can let us know if something is missing or not. We try to cover most of them, relevant one from the CS and HCM days. So with that, I think we are done. Did we cover the tenant-based license reporting, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can certainly cover. We have like 2 minutes. So, so the tenant-based license reporting, it's more of like helping the tenant admin to understand. Maybe I can just expand this to understand like how the units are checked out, and what is checked out, and what is the current numbers of the license units that are consumed. So all those information you can get it from one single report. And this will help you to track the license usage in the tool per tenant. And also the auto pause module is already updated with information about the overall usage, again the checked out type, and also the pool wise usage, so that it will be more intuitive to understand where exactly the license is getting consumed. And of course, as I mentioned, it's for the tenant view, and it is for the entire admin view, more importantly from the auto pause side.
Thanks, Alex, and then thanks everyone. This is the kind of HCMX, as I mentioned, is the one of the module which is introduced in last couple of PI. Do let us know if you need to know more. We will be happy to connect with you one-on-one, or do follow our practitioner forum, idea exchange, and other collaboration platforms, as Tony mentioned initially, so that we can engage more. Thanks to everyone for listening this, and over to you, Stephen.
Thank you. Can you advance to, I think it's slide 82, the thank you slide. And we are at the end of our time. I want to thank all of you who have attended for your engagement. Got lots of questions. That's great. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and attend the webinar. Hopefully it was useful to you. Those of you who are from Micro Focus or our partners, we will be doing the internal follow-on meeting to this right after. It will take us a couple minutes to get switched over, so please be patient as we get set up and then start that call. Thank you. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.